Alright guys, I asked if you wanted to find out a little bit more about some lifting accessories, how to use them, what they're used for, what the benefits are. So I'm going to take you through some of the lifting accessories that I personally use and that I use a lot, and I'll just give you a rundown of what they're used for and how they can benefit you with your training and your lifting. So I'm going to start from the bottom down, so I'm going to start from the feet, and the first thing would be a pair of lifters. Now, lifting shoes can be great for people with limited ankle range, so forward knee progression, which can be hindered if you have restricted ankles. So the lifting shoe actually has a bit of a platform there which will give you greater forward knee progression, which is what you want when you squat. Don't listen to those people that tell you your knee should not go over your toe. But more than that, there is stable support for your shoe. If you look at all the Olympic lifters, they all wear lifting shoes, but do you think they have an issue with their ankle range? No. It's a really nice stable support and a stable base for your feet. If you don't have lifters, the other alternative for squatting in would be something like your Converse, your Chuck Taylors. You do not want to be squatting in sort of Asics running shoes that are really thick and really spongy soles, because you're just not stable on the floor then. So if anything, you want a pair of lifters, some flat shoes like some Chuck Taylors, or bare feet. If you can squat in bare feet, winning. But I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. So in terms of brands, size shoe, all that sort of stuff, really it depends on your budget. I actually use the Reebok CrossFit lifters. I actually got these online from Eastbay's, and they were probably about 120 maybe-ish, it was a few years ago, Australian dollars. You can go to the top end of the spectrum and get the Adidas, I think they're Adidas Powers, but just have a little shop around. Generally anything that's got some Velcro on there too, a nice little stiff heel, and whatever fits into your budget. So you might see some people wearing knee sleeves. There's a couple of reasons for this. I've got some Rock Tape knee sleeves here, nice and girly. These are really good for joint health and joint support. They provide a bit of extra padding around the knees, which actually helps keep the joint warm. So if you're a person that has knee issues like myself, I have osgood-schlitis, just keeping that joint warm prevents knee pain for me. And you really you want to be training for longevity. You don't want to be beating yourself up in the gym now to actually be quite crippled when you hit 30 or when you hit 40. So joint health and support is really important. I always squat with my knee sleeves. In terms of brands, again, depending on your price range, I use Rock Tape. They were pretty cheap-ish. I think they're around maybe, I can't remember if it was $50 a sleeve or if maybe it was like 60 for two. I can't remember. You need to go onto whichever website you go to, whether it be Rock Tape or SBD, they're another top-end brand, and you actually need to measure your knee or your leg to find the right millimeter. So I use a small, and I think they're a 5 mil. Obviously, the thicker they are, the more rigid they're going to be around the joint, the more support you're going to get. So that's knee sleeves. Squatting, lunging, I don't use them for deadlifts. It's basically anything where you're going to have knee flexion and extension. My shin sleeves, shin guards. These are also by Rock Tape. They were relatively cheap-ish. They're probably down the bottom end of the market. Really good for protecting your shins. Now, you can maybe call me a wuss, but the one thing that puts me off my deadlift and puts me off my lift is scraping my shins. And it's like 40-degree heat here in Australia most of the time, so you train in shorts. When you've got tights or leggings on, your shins have almost got that little bit of protection there. But when you train in shorts, what happens? You just take chunks out of your shins. So getting a pair of shin sleeves is possibly the most or the best investment you could make in protecting your shins. When I don't have them with me and I deadlift, honestly, I want to cry. Again, Rock Tape, you can go both ends of the spectrum. Really good to protect your shins. I would definitely. All right, where are we going to next? I'm going to come back to the weight belt. I'm just going to talk a little bit about wrist straps. So you might have seen people wrap their wrists with these. I will take you through a squat session after and show you how I use all this equipment. I really only use the wrist straps, and you'd want to tighten them nice around the wrist. I really only use these for low bar squatting. When you low bar, especially if your shoulder mobility is a little bit out, you'll see that the wrists come back a little bit. So ultimately you want to try and get those wrists straight and squeeze the shoulders back, but there's a lot of force driving through the wrist there. So wrist straps are just there for a bit of protection around those joints. It's a really tiny joint, so you want to sort of do as much as you can to protect those. So if you low bar squat and you do get wrist pain, invest in some wrist straps. Do you know what, I'm not even sure what the brand is with these, but stick it in your Google engine and find some that are in your price range. All right, low bar squats. And finally, the weight belts. You might see a lot of people on social media or Instagram using weight belts for squats, for deadlifts, for bench press. Weight belts are used to create more abdominal pressure or more abdominal tightness. Generally, when we lift without a belt, we create tightness through our abdominals by popping the rib cage down, taking a breath in, and drawing the belly button in to create tightness around the midsection. The way the weight belt works is, in fact, you create internal tightness by pushing out against an external force, which is the weight belt. So it can be a little bit tricky to get your head around if it's the first time you've used it. So I would definitely recommend practicing on some lighter weights just so you can get the feel for it, because it is a bit strange. And one thing I would say is if you are holding in the toilet, make sure you go before you do a lift with the belt. There are a whole heap of different ranges for weight belts. Again, find that one that fits your price budget. This one here is actually a belt with the belt hook and the holes. It can be quite hard and tricky to really get in there nice and tight with it, so one that's got a clasp that you can just leverage back and forth would be quite good. I will pop at the bottom of my video this brand, this thickness, where you can get them from. It's actually a custom made and it was a gift. But there's a whole heap of variants for weight belts, so again, find one that works for you. I'll also show you how to use this when you lift and talk about the breathing technique. As I said, it does take a little bit to get used to. And if you do need to go to the toilet, make sure you go first, because it's a very strange feeling. In saying that, in using all these accessories, the benefits for them are they add a little bit support to your joints. It helps you create more tightness through the belt, and it can help with your numbers. It can help with your strength numbers. It can make you lift more. In saying that though, you should be able to lift with perfect technique without any of this stuff.